So today I'm going to explain what GitHub is. All the content that I'm going to explain about GitHub is right behind this box. And during this video I'm going to promote my mobile app. If you're not interested, then get lost. So let's start. First of all, a command line is like PowerShell. For example, this is called a command line. See, have you ever seen this? This is called a command line. Okay, good. Now that's a command line. A CLI is like a command line interface app that runs in the command line. Super simple. That's it. An app that instead of having a UI, it runs in the command line, like in PowerShell. A TUI or a terminal user interface is like a CLI, but it's got interactive UI. But it's still inside a terminal, inside a command line. So it's like a more interactive version of a CLI. A CLI is like a static version. Version control is controlling different versions of something. Like you could revert the state to a previous version, merge different versions into one version, like that. Git was made by Linus Torvalds, who is the founder, who is the creator of Linux. And Git is like version control, but for code bases. That's it. That's what Git is actually. And a more fancier name for a code base is a repository, and a more fancier name for folder or subfolder is a directory or subdirectory. These are terms that you need to know. Okay. Now repositories, like Git repositories, like ones on GitHub, have a name format like owner name slash repo name. So if unselfish neologism, that is my username, is the owner and the repository name is Trent, then unselfish neologism slash Trent will be the name of the repository. Git client is like a software that lets you interact with Git with the Git engine, Git system for any repository or for any Git purpose. Okay, more on Git purposes. More on Git purposes later. And GitHub is basically a Git client. Okay. And what's GH? GH is GitHub CLI. It's like a CLI app made by GitHub to control Git repositories that are hosted on GitHub. It's GitHub exclusive, made by GitHub, only for GitHub and GitHub projects. You can perform most of your Git commands actually using GHCLI. That's one thing. GitHub.com is the web app version, GUI version with a graphical user interface that people are used to of GitHub. That's what GitHub.com is. It's the place where all the code bases are stored, everything. GH and GitHub.com Same functionality. GH runs in the terminal, github.com in your browser. Simple. That's the only difference. The yeah, the code is on GitHub though. Mm, and around this invention of Git and GitHub and Linux and all, there's this culture of open source that started among the early internet, and open source self-hosted. They're kind of a cult, like privacy, like contributing to open source, etc., etc. Open source just means that code is publicly available. Code for a project or a code base is publicly available. Self-hosted means anything that can be hosted in the cloud, like Dropbox is something that can be hosted in the cloud. Google Workspace is something that can be hosted in the cloud. Mm, you could host your own OpenClaw in the cloud. It depends. But self-hosting means you're hosting on your own device, on your own infrastructure, not on the cloud, locally. Okay, on your devices. Git clone means cloning a code base, anyone's code base, your code base or someone else's code base. Mostly, yes. Yeah, clone a code base from any Git client onto your local device. No authentication yet. If you're using the GitHub CLI, I'll show you. You can if you're using the GitHub CLI, you can just go to a GitHub repo and click on this code button and just copy this. Then with that button, you just copy this. Then you go to PowerShell or any terminal and you paste that there, and then it will clone that in. No, if I do this, it will clone it. But I have already cloned it, so it is a duplicate. So yeah, and GitHub also has this thing called code spaces, which I'll get more onto later. Anyways, git clone means clone a code base. Git commit means like a checkpoint, a save point for your changes that you made. All the changes that you made till this point. Git add means adding a file or a set of files to a save point, to a commit version. Git push means uploading your save point or save points to a Git client. Yeah, it's like uploading. Yeah, you can say uploading. Git log lists all the commits that you made for this repository that you're working on. Git amend means modifying the latest commit that you might have made by mistake, like maybe the commit message is wrong or incorrect, or maybe a small change in only the latest commit that you made. Git reset means reverting to any previous commit. It reverts the state of that code base to a previous version. So this is actually a very miraculous invention, I feel, of Git, because like you imagine, you can, this is like time traveling. You can time travel to a version of your code base that existed previously. It's so perfect. It's like a miracle. Git push, git commit, git add, git merge, whatever, git pull, whatever. These are all common Git commands and they need authentication, but Git clone doesn't, because it's just cloning a code base. I just forgot to tell you something. If you don't want to use git, you can use this command. It's like it's not using git, but it just dumps a code base from a git client onto your local device. This is actually much more one of if you don't need source control and all. It's like downloading a folder, but that folder is a git repository. That's all. So this is actually more one of solution. So it goes like this: npx dgit owner name name force. It's that simple. Like okay, it's that simple. But you do have to note that this only works for public Git repositories, not private ones, because private ones dgit doesn't let you download. Dgit also doesn't need authentication. Okay. Now git recent and git push. Git commit these all need authentication. We finish that. Fork. Fork means making. I'll show you. You see this button over here, this button? Yeah. What that does is a fork is a copy of a repository. Forking a repository allows you to freely experiment with changes without affecting the original product. So what that means is making a copy of someone else's or your own code base legally. It must be public. It must be a public repository into your own account. So making a copy of someone else's or your other code base, other repository into your own account. So if I for github.com Facebook React to my account, it will become github.com and selfish React. GitHub provides a more accurate description of a fork. A fork is a copy of a repository. Forking a repository allows you to freely experiment with changes without affecting the original project. Like, I don't have to affect the React project. I can work on React without in my own account, in my own terms. Okay. Anyways, licenses apply to folks like MIT, GNU, APAC. I'll show you an example. And MIT is the most like MIT is the most friendly and free in the sense most freedom type of license. This is the GNU Lesser General Public License version, which my app uses. And GNU, APAC, MIT, etc. They're like different. So see, it just like popular open source licenses, but they grant very different rights. MIT and APAC are highly permissive, as I said, allowing you to use GNU is a copy left, requiring all modified versions to remain open source. That's what I use. MIT, see, it's MIT is the most freedom type of license. Back and GNU is like a little more restrictive. Anyways, they scope the amount of freedom you have over forking and modifying someone else's repository. Next up is pull request. Pull request means the pull request is like a process or fork someone's code base, then make a change to the repository, then git add the files you changed, then git commit, then git push, then it gets pushed to unselfish neologism React in this example. And then you go to Facebook React Go to pull requests tab. Okay, I'll show you actually. So I wanted to actually add my Android app to this repository that has these awesome Android apps. So I forked, as you can see, it's written here. I forked awesome local Android into my own account. Then I made a commit. If you can see, I made a branch. I made a commit and a branch. See, add project name to Android apps list. I made a commit, and then I went to their original repository by this guy, and then I made a pull request. How do you make a pull request? You create one. You create one by clicking on this button, new pull request, and then you have to compare between different. So I have to choose between. I have to compare across forks. So compare across fork and choose my fork, and then now that I have already made a pull request, there is nothing left to compare. Yes. Actually, no, that's not the reason. It's because I'm on the wrong branch. As you can see, there is the changes. This is because, and it's able to merge, so I just create a pull request. Now that I've already made a pull request, no one has closed it yet, but that's okay. For the maintainer of Awesome Local Android to approve my pull request. Now I actually use the rise of AI and all. Injection of malware into code bases is increasing, and that's why pull request scrutiny is going on a lot nowadays. So it's a really tough job for maintainers. And so the review process is also quite bad. So both open source contributors and maintainers are struggling because of people trying to use AI to inject malware into open source projects. And then wait for approval from the maintainers. Once approved, your pull request gets merged into the original project. Then there is contributors, mostly bots. That's what I said, mostly bots nowadays. I'll show you an example. Actually, I'll use my app as an example. You can see this is a bot, Jules.Google. It's by Google. This is a bot, CTO.new. And see here, this is another bot, Claude. Okay, like that. And what are their open source contributors like these two people? Was is another bot by Walt. People making PRs to improve other open source projects. Like I made a PR to Awesome Local Android. Then after this IDEs are integrated development environments. It is just fancy names for like apps like VS Code. They're not good at all. Actually, GitHub actually has a cloud hosted IDE. It's called Code Spaces, and what it lets you do is it is an IDE that runs in the cloud, not on your device. You can code in the cloud on GitHub servers. If it's too resource intensive, you have to pay to GitHub, but mostly not. Anyways, like see, I have a code space for my project on GitHub code spaces. So what it is, it's basically like an entire VS Code running in the cloud, just linked to your GitHub your one GitHub repository, one specific GitHub repository. That's what a code space is. See, this is a code space. Yeah, this is what you've seen, right? This is VS Code, but it's in the browser. Anyways, so forget that. And but our our IDE is good. No, they're not good. There are many reasons. Because they're too outdated, they're too obsolete, they're too crappy, sloppy. ADEs are the new IDEs. Believe me. ADEs are agentic development environments like Z, Warp, M-Dash, Conductor, etc. Very, very good. Too good. Too good. They're like coding agent orchestrators. Like you can manage multiple coding agents using a single app. Bro, IDs are just too obsolete when it's compared to ADs. Just use an AD, believe me. And if you want just one AD, actually, I prefer you use Z plus Warp terminal. See, that's what I use. So like yeah, that's what I use. And GitHub code spaces, as I said, is an ID in the cloud hosted by GitHub. CI or CD, just a fancy name. Continuous integration or continuous development. Fancy names, that's it. I'll tell you what it is. CI/CD means workflows running in the cloud, in most cases at least. At least what I use CI/CD. It's just a fancy name for workflows. Workflow runs. Like, yeah, that's what workflows are. That's what I use. CI/CD use cases. Building files from your using the build configurations that are in your code space, in your code base, to build from those configurations from your app's code. You generate an executable, an installable file like an exe, dmg, apk, aab, ipa, anything. Zip also can be generated, anything can be, or it's used for connecting to third-party tools. Like, have you heard of Hugging Face? Hugging Face is like another Git client, but it's for AI, open source AI models. GitHub is for open source code, and Hugging Face is for open source AI models. Those are called open weights actually. So like another purpose for CI/CD is connecting to third-party tools for different purposes, like syncing a code between Hugging Face space, between a Hugging Face space or dataset or anything, and between a GitHub repo or any other third-party tool like Stripe or Superbase and your GitHub code, if they're connected in some other way. Or it could be for some other maybe enterprise done use case that I haven't used CI/CD for any. Next, GitHub Actions. CI/CD GitHub exclusive, hosted by GitHub, runs in GitHub servers, runs on GitHub servers, runs in the cloud. Nothing on your device. GitHub, and yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, GitHub Actions are quite too slow. Let me show you. So, you see this, these things take a hell lot of time. Just look at the time, bro. 39 minutes, 1 hour. No, I mean, the ones that actually run, they go for like 40 minutes, dude. It's just outrageous, man. GitHub CI/CD is too slow. You have to use something like something, but something paid, like Blacksmith, to improve the speed. Anyways, I don't have that sort of money. GitHub releases is like place where each release is public, like place where releases are. People can download the installers like exe, dmgp of that project from the code GitHub, from the project's GitHub releases page. And most GitHub releases page at least have a change log, a list of all the changes made in that release version. Understood? And each release version listed on each GitHub project's release page has like a version number like v1, v2. I'll show you an example. Like if you go to Z's releases page, you'll find that they have, see, this is a release page, version number, change log, list of all changes made, bug fixes, and the assets, the executables. See dmg exe, because yeah, okay, that's what a GitHub releases page is. And GitHub releases are indexed by Google. Even GitHub, all GitHub projects are indexed by Google, all public ones. GitHub Copilot is honestly an insult to coding engines. But built by GitHub, why an insult? Bro, it's built by GitHub is owned by Microsoft, bro. It's obviously an insult. Yeah. Microsoft. Facts. Is GitHub good? Obviously not. Microsoft owns it. GitHub is bad. Very much. Isn't it free? So then why bad? They spam GitHub Copilot too much. Was GitHub originally good? Yeah, very good. Before Microsoft bought it though. Microsoft degraded it, slopified it, rotted. So are there any GitHub alternatives, aka other Git clients that are better? Yeah, very much. Just like Hugging Face. I'll show you. GitHub clients. GitHub clients like FasterGH, Stage Review is for just for code review, or DHub by a prime intellect employee. It is made by Diffs Hub, built on Diff.com and free software. They're not Git alternatives exactly, but FasterGH is a GitHub client. If you want a Git client, an actual Git client, you have to look at things like Cursor's origin by Cursor is a very new one, or ook.space or gitlob.com or gitlab.com or bitbucket.com. You know, there are many things. And yeah, here's a fun fact. All this time I was using the GitHub theme. See, all this time I was using this GitHub theme on this whiteboard. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you wanna see this, so what the heck is Cloud Code about, watch my next video.